been provided to the Co-Star, the official newspaper of the Borough, Belmar, and the Asbury Park Press on December 22nd, 2021, and notice of this meeting was posted on the bulletin boards of the municipal building. Take roll call. Councilman Brennan?
Here.
Councilman McKinney? Here. Mayor Walsberg?
Here.
Councilman McCracken?
Here.
And Councilman Carvelli is absent.
Thank you, April. Everybody can join me in saluting the flag of our great nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody can remain standing just for a moment of silence for our troops, their families, and all our first responders. Thank you. Workshop. We have Ryan DeLee here because we have a resolution on for tonight for the shared service agreement between Lake Como, Manasquan, and Seeger for the EMS shared service. So, Ryan, can you give us an update?
Sure. Good evening. Thank you guys for having me here tonight. I'm part of the team that was put together to look into the future, looking to see what we can establish in a regional capacity for first aid, EMS. We actually started these conversations back in February of last year, prior to our start in April. Looking at the current trends, what we were faced with, we started planning with multiple municipalities within the southern Monmouth County area with the goal to provide a reliable service as well as cost-effective method and provide our residents with one of the best EMS programs in the shore. Doing so, we met and we've been meeting obviously since that February of 2021, where we have implemented a plan to come up and serve the southern Monmouth area from Belmar, Lake Como, Manasquan, and Seeger. The group involved the police chiefs, business administrators, and public safety officials from all municipalities. During these meetings, we took an analysis of all the data, current trends, what's facing our communities, and we put those ideas together to come up with an operational plan. The plan is going to be utilizing our existing infrastructure with our EMS, our employees, and our apparatus. We're going to transition our model from a per diem model, which is a part-time employee model, to a career-based model, with the goal to provide a highly competitive position to ensure the retainment of employees. Right now, I'm not sure if the room's aware, but in the EMS community, retention is a very hard thing for employees from private to public, from hospital-based to community-based. Volunteering as well is declining due to an increase in standards and training increases, as well as changes in the community. Tonight, what we have before us is a put-together shared service agreement that has been under attorney review by 4 different attorneys. It has been put through the ringer through these committee meetings, and what we have is a very solid emergency medical services plan. The details of that, it's going to be 8 full-time EMTs, 1 full-time supervisor, as well as part-time employees like we have now. What the staffing is going to be is the 24/7 ambulance with an additional 10-hour ambulance to meet the daytime increase in call volume. We have an 18-week period in the summer from May to September that is going to increase our staffing for 48 hours of service. So that's going to be from Friday to Sunday. There'll be an additional 1 to 2 ambulances on overnight for that increased call volume. We will be utilizing our mutual aid system as we do now, and we will be returning the favor to those communities that help us. So nothing's going to change in that aspect. And one last thing we're awaiting final word from our LEAP grant. We're anticipating a $250,000 grant to reduce our startup costs, which would be the increased ambulance and supplies needed for this project. I was on the phone with the DCA yesterday, and it is still looking very good for that, and they said we should hear within the next 1 to 2 weeks. Yes, so the Borough of Manasquan signed the agreement last night at their council meeting. Lake Como has it on their docket tonight, and Seagirt has it at their next annual meeting as well.
Does every town get the $250,000 grant, or is it just one?
No, it's a lump sum. In the future, which we've already had correspondence with other jurisdictions looking or intrigued into this service, in the future, that grant does open back up for those municipalities who would like to come on board later at the time.
Okay. All right, thanks. Jim, do you have anything?
Ryan, could you just give an overview of the process for the benefit of the public and people who are watching this online about what other adjacent municipalities would need to do if they decided to opt in the future?
So right now, the agreement would be that our binding agreement would obviously have to be negotiated. Right now, we have in this agreement a steering committee, which is a member of each municipality sitting on this, I guess it would be a working group that is going to be overseeing the budget, overseeing this procedures, and just overseeing operations as well. So they would take that information from the town, there would be an analysis done on the call volume data, and then a reassessment would have to be made at that point.
Hey Ryan, can you just do me a favor and go over the volunteer squads? I know Manasquan has a volunteer squad, we still have volunteers in Belmar. We're trying to work on that model to make sure that they still have their identities and fit right into the plan.
No, of course. The volunteers are very important to us in this program. Obviously, they're going to be utilized as, excessive call volume, whatnot. We have a meeting tomorrow, actually, with the Manasquan First Aid Squad captain to discuss further operations and to identify their concerns and how they're going to integrate into this capacity. And we would like to incorporate our volunteers that we have had sought interest in our program to be being utilized into that program as well, to be used for special events, standbys, and any other community needs that we see fit.
Okay, thank you. Anybody has a question?
I actually did, Ryan. So why so how will Manasquan and Cedar, being a couple of towns away, be able to benefit, Lake Como and Belmar?
So the whole benefit of a shared service is obviously multiple jurisdictions paying for the service. So when we were analyzing our data, we looked at municipalities like Wall Township, which actually has a larger span of distance than us, looked at their staffing, looked at their operations, their call volume, compared it to what we saw. That's why we had that additional ambulance there. These ambulances are going to be centrally, right now one's going to be obviously in Belmar and going to be centrally located. There is possible other opportunities from the other municipalities to make like a substation, but these ambulances are going to be, we hope that the call volume is large enough that they're going to be mobile.
Yeah, Ryan, I'd just like to say, you have navigated this borough through several changes over the recent time, all while COVID-19 was going on. The transition from, a volunteer/paid service to borough operating services to now a multi-borough first aid squad. And in my opinion, you haven't missed a beat. You've been optimistic, you've been very thorough, you've done a tremendous amount of research all the time, prioritizing the residents of the borough of Belmar so that when they need an ambulance, it will be there for them. And I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words. But it wouldn't be possible without the team that we have here with Chief Scott, Borough Administrator Kirschenbaum, and all the other public officials that work very hard on this plan. I can't forget to mention the Seagirt, Manasquan, and Lake Como employees too that all pitched into this and worked diligently and multiple hours. A lot of nights were spent till midnight on the phone trying to work through this and try to get something put together in time for the summer. So I just want to thank everybody who assisted in that.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. All right. The only other thing I have for workshop is we were hoping to have the introduction of our budget tonight, but it is not finalized from the auditors yet. So because of the timing, it looks like we're going to have a special meeting Saturday at 10 o'clock to introduce the budget. And the reasoning for that is that you have to wait 28 days for the adoption and then 20 days. So if we waited till June, it wouldn't be adopted till July, and then like we're gonna have to have a 10 o'clock meeting on Saturday morning, and the only thing that we're gonna do there is just introduce the budget for the first meeting. And that's all I have. Does anybody have anything for workshop that they want to bring up? Okay, so we'll move on. April petitions.
I have not received any petitions.
Approval of minutes of the May meeting.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 3rd, 2022 meeting?
Motion.
Second?
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Kenny?
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman McCracken?
Abstain.
Okay, reports of council, Council President McCracken.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have some representatives from the Shade Tree Commission here this evening, but I wanted to read a letter and a recognition that Belmar received from the Arbor Day Foundation, recognizing Belmar as a Tree City USA. Belmar was named a 2021 Tree City USA by the Arbor Day Foundation to honor its commitment to effective urban forest management. Belmar achieved Tree City USA recognition by meeting the program's 4 requirements: forming a tree board or department, creating a tree care ordinance, having an annual community forestry budget of at least $2 per capita, and an Arbor Day observance and proclamation. The Tree City USA program is sponsored by the Arbor Day Foundation in partnership with the U.S. Forest Service and the National Association of State Foresters. The Tree City USA communities benefit from the positive efforts that an urban tree canopy has year after year, said Dan Lamb, Chief Executive of the Arbor Day Foundation. The trees being planted and cared for by the borough ensure the generations to come will enjoy a better quality of life. Additionally, participation in this program helps cultivate a sense of stewardship and pride for the trees the community plants and care for. So I'd just like to recognize the really hard work that all the volunteers on the Shade Tree Commission put forward, and thank them and recognize them for this great accomplishment that the borough has achieved in 2021.
That is a good accomplishment.
Secondly, just an update, the Belmar Housing Authority, Councilwoman Kinney and I hosted a lunch and learn for the residents at the Housing Authority today. Pizza was provided, and Councilwoman Kinney reviewed the new Nixle program, Belmar Alerts, and John Sabia was in attendance at that lunch and learn and assisted the residents there one-on-one, getting them signed up either with their phones or their laptops or however they wanted to be connected with the alerts, and went over the different levels of the alerts and what types of alerts they want to receive, including the new Belmar newsletter that we're doing. So it was very well received. John, great job today, and this new program is a great way to get current and pertinent information and updates to our residents, and Councilwoman Kinney did a fantastic job transitioning from the Code Red system to this new system, which is saving borough taxpayers money as well. So that was well received and a good meeting today.
That's it. Okay. Councilman Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was able to attend the first Tourism Commission meeting in 2 years on Wednesday last week. And we have their budget. I got to tell you, this is the first time tourism's actually done an organized budget like this that I've seen. The tourism fees come in at just under $170,000, and it covers a couple of employees, covers a lot of things. Basically, the long and short of it is all your favorites are going to be back. The movies on the beach are going to start in July. The Friday night concerts are going to start a week from Friday, after this weekend. A couple of things people should I think would be interested in knowing. Big events like the Seafood Festival and San Gennaro, they cover their expenses, but they don't bring in a bunch of extra revenue. Basically, it's make sure they cover what we spend to put them on. We don't want to lose money, and they don't lose money as long as the weather cooperates. We are definitely doing well with the Route 35 sign. We have, there's fireworks on the 4th of July, Friday, 4th of July weekend?
Yes.
Yeah, fireworks, 4th of July. The big band concerts are definitely in there. There's money for the surf competition in September, money for the flowers on Main Street, very nice, and flags and banners. It was really, it was a great meeting. It was good. The commissioners were very enthusiastic. There were a lot of good ideas. There were representatives from the BVP there who were going to present some of their ideas because they're working much more closely with tourism now as far as what should we spend money on. And I'll tell you the truth, one of the things about doing a budget for the first time that I think I'm very aware of and I want people to be aware of, it's a work in progress. The first time you do a budget, even with the numbers, all the expenses for things have increased. The cost of things are more than they were before, and we're looking to make sure, really what we want to make sure is that tourism fees cover what we want to spend them on. And we don't want to be short on that. One idea that the tourism commissioners did float, because it's so tied in with beach badges, they were wondering about, in the past we had a half-season beach badge. Somebody remember that? Do you remember that?
I think in August, yeah.
Yeah, something like
years
that.
ago.
Yeah, so we're going to look into that. I'm going to start to, I told them I would start to find out about that and report back to them next month about what those options are. And they're also working very hard on the 150th anniversary. A lot of those events are coming. Okay. The other things I wanted to mention, Seafood Festival this weekend, and it's not going to rain. It's not going to rain on Saturday. And I just want to mention Porch Fest again. It wasn't an official Belmar event, but it really was. It went over very well. I mean, the organizers went back and forth about what should we cancel, should we cancel. Rescheduling would have been impossible. So they decided to just go for it. All the porches had roofs, so the musicians were okay. Some of them played for no people, but that's okay. You play for the love of the music, right? And it was really nice. Some of the porches had really nice turnouts. There was a lot of enthusiasm. We found that the host porches that planned it as a kind of a party, a social event, had the best turnout and had the most fun. So I know that Johnny Comfort, the organizer, is definitely excited about looking to plan it for next year. And I also think the weekend before the Seafood Festival is the time to do it. It was very well tied in with the yard sales. And one of the things I saw, since my porch was one of the hosts, was the music started at 1 o'clock, and before it started raining, around 2 o'clock, there were yard salers definitely stopping, looking at the music, listening. They really enjoyed it. One of the things I noticed on Sunday, when I was trying so hard not to think about the weather, was that I think planning it for the middle of May is not a bad idea, because it's just as likely you're going to get a day like Sunday as you can get a day like Saturday was. So it was really a lot of fun, and I really appreciate all the people who came. Councilwoman Kinney came by my porch, that was great.
And I thought you did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Mission compliments I have.
His band did such a great job. They were
Thank you.
so fun. I stood out there in the rain with my dog Daphne, and we watched for like an hour. It was
Oh
fun.
yeah, it was like Porch Fest style.
Yeah.
Where's the money? All right, well, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Kenny.
Thank you, Mayor Walsifer. Okay, I have a couple things about recreation. Just as we mentioned, the summer concerts do start next Friday at Peony Plaza, and they'll be every Friday after that. Summer camp registration is closed now. They are full summer camp. Sign-ups are still open for junior guards, kids running club, summer basketball, and summer tennis. You can go to the website, go on recreation, sign up starting May 1st. You can still sponsor a team if you would like to. I talked to you guys about this before. It's only $100 to sponsor a team in town, so if you want to get some exposure for your business, it's a good way to do that. They're still looking for soccer coaches for the fall also. Pickleball courts are first come, first served. There's a lot of interest in pickleball. I know I see pickleball courts are filling up. So right now it's a first come, first served thing outside. They will be ending the inside the week of June 2nd, and everybody will be playing outside. And chair yoga is starting Thursday, June 2nd, $5, 9:30 to 10:30 in the morning, and that's in the gym. That's all I have for recreation right now. Our next ADA meeting is supposed to be Thursday at the library, but Pat Roddy is playing at the library on Thursday, so I don't think that we're going to be, I think we're gonna need to reschedule that. But everybody can stay and watch Pat Roddy for sure, that's always fun. And then just a few things around the schools. Belmar Elementary School, their field day is May 27th, next Friday. Their spring concert and art show is at the auditorium on June 2nd. And on June 8th, the 4th graders are doing their wax museum. St. Rose Grammar School, the 8th graders made confirmation this Thursday. Their annual carnival day, which pretty much takes up that whole block, is next Monday, the 23rd. And then there's an open house for the grammar school on June 1st. 8th grade graduation is June 9th. And then in the high school, both the girls and boys lacrosse are in the state tournament this year. That's coming up, that starts this weekend. And senior prom is May 24th. Baccalaureate mass is June 2nd. And the seniors graduate on the 7th up at Monmouth University. And that's all I have around the schools. That's it.
Just a couple of things for me. I know everybody's aware that we had to cancel the Field of Dreams dedication of that field, the baseball game, and the movie that was supposed to play down there. We are in the process of rescheduling that, so we're waiting for baseball players to get back to us with a couple of dates that they have. We're going to reschedule it. The weather just didn't hold up for us, and the players backed out right away. So we decided that there's no sense of going on with the plaque without having all the festivities of the day. So we're looking to reschedule that. I want to thank Ann and Rocco Cavaluzzi for spearheading medical supplies for Ukraine. I mean, they did a wonderful job. And I also want to thank everybody that donated. We went down there when the trucks came to load everything on, and the amount of donations were incredible. And I just have to say that, we have such a great town, and all the people that do all the different things to raise money for different things in our town. Kyle Rizzatello and Claire Dykey raising the money for breast cancer awareness for theirs. Jim and I attended the Belmar Fishing Club, where they raised money for Rebuilding Warriors, which they raised $12,000 to buy a PSD dog and train it. So, and all the different events that everybody does. I just have to mention that because, the Shillelaghs do so much fundraising for different things around town. And we really do have a good community that people really go out of their way. But you can really see it with when Ann and Rocco Cavaluzzi put that all together for Ukraine, and the amount of things that were collected. It was really nice to see. And that's all I have. So, all right, we'll move on to public session on any of the resolution items.
Anyone has a comment or a question regarding a resolution on the agenda, please step forward, state your name and address.
Jerry?
Gerald Tucapusco. 409 Fifth Avenue, Belmar. Thanks for the explanation about the service agreement, because I have some questions, but they're really not operational. They're more financial and budgetary type questions. The first thing when I was looking at this, it seems to me that this basic life support, emergency medical services piece, that's the piece that's being offered by Belmar, where the town is going to be offering that to the other 3 municipalities. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
So none of the other 3 municipalities will be providing that service to each other or to us.
No, so right, we're using our infrastructure, they're paying into our program.
Okay. That's what I thought. And I
We're
just
in
wanted to make sure.
negotiations with their volunteers also to possibly have their response into this jurisdiction.
Okay. The other thing that I had a question about was in paragraph 5 of section B, they refer to the steering committee as the South Monmouth EMS Steering Committee. And my question is, is this like a separate entity now? Is this like an authority or a utility, or I mean, what is there any kind of
So in the future.
basis for it as in like in state statute or anything like that?
No, so that's just the name of the committee.
Okay.
It is a shared service agreement that is ran through the Borough of Belmar. That is just a committee with input for, budgetary, just another layer to, have each town who's paying into this have, say,
Okay.
operations and just be in the know. So
Yeah, I mean, I noticed, in terms of what its responsibilities are, that it's going to have, provide recommendation for hiring of an EMS coordinator and the EMTs. And the question about that, it's my understanding that those individuals will be Belmar employees.
Correct.
Okay. Just a question, would we want to think about why we would want someone other than Belmar people selecting employees that are going to be working for the borough? I just throw it out there. I mean, I would think that, if they're going to be Belmar employees, then Belmar people should be making a selection.
The long-term plan here is to make sure that we have a regional service. This is just the first step. It's a bold move to get a paid emergency medical service into the a regional area. So Belmar will be involved with selecting who will be working, but the steps will be moving forward with the Director of Public Safety and all the towns involved to start a regional approach to get the right statute from the state. We have a lot of information from the state coming down. This is the first step to get a regional system in place because, unfortunately, in Monmouth County and throughout New Jersey, volunteerism is really at an all-time low based on the circumstances. People can't volunteer any longer. So this is a first step to try to get a regional system in place. Belmar is involved with making sure of who's hired, but this document is going to move forward into a different type of agreement.
And ultimately, in that document, the Borough of Belmar is responsible for the hiring and firing of any employee. That steering committee just gives another layer of, fairness.
Yeah, it was just, my question was specific as to the hiring and firing. In my estimation is if we're paying the employees and we're giving them all the benefits, then,
And in that,
we should be doing the
it
selection.
is the CFO, the human resources, so it is all through the Borough of Belmar, and there is a offset in the budget for that.
Okay, there's also here a review and approval of the annual budget presenting to their jurisdictions for budgeting each year. And that's another thing that I had a question about. This budget that this steering committee is going to have, is that their own budget? Is that going to be, or is it going to be part of?
No, it's part of the municipal budget. It's separate line items. So what's going to happen is the supervisor's going to submit, it's a level of over, for other public safety officials to get their input to make sure that everything's fair.
But it's going to be part of the Belmar's budget?
Correct. It's part of the municipal budget.
Not
No,
Cedar?
it's a shared service agreement through Belmar. It's no regional like a fire district or anything like that. This is the Borough of Belmar, a shared service.
And do we know, is there going to be a separate category or line items for
As it is now, there is
appropriations and revenues for this
Well, Ryan,
steering committee?
the other towns will have to have a line item also.
for the contribution to us,
Right,
yes.
there's a contribution to it, so it'll be the same type of
Yeah.
line item.
It's very
for us.
similar to what we have now, personnel account and operating account.
Very
the other
similar to
towns,
how we
yeah.
have it when they come over to the
Correct.
police department.
Yep.
I guess my question is, if a member of the public were to look at the budget, can they easily find out what the revenue stream is for the steering committee, the South Monmouth Steering Committee, and the appropriations for the South Monmouth Steering Committee?
So they're just making a recommendation. They're not adopting or approving anything. So they are presenting it to the CFO who adopts it.
Well, it
where it
says
goes.
here that they're going to review and approve an annual operating budget.
Yes.
So that'll be the percentage to each town.
Yeah, it would be a percentage of each town, so I want to try to clear up the confusion then. I'm sorry, I was letting Brian take this because this is his baby. Honestly, he's done an amazing job. But each town has to, I'm sorry, can everybody hear me a little better now? Sorry about that. Yes, each town
has to contribute a certain percentage of funds, and I believe it's 15, 15, 35, 35, if I recall correctly, maybe 15, 15, 30, 30, as far as the numbers are concerned. But the purpose of the steering committee is it's essentially, when you go back to like negotiations and yelling back and forth with all the attorneys, it goes down to municipalities don't want to tax their taxpayers and not have a say over how their taxpayer dollars get funded. So by providing for each representative who has a voice in this say, it essentially is the representation that their taxpayers' dollars are being put towards. As far as the line item and the budgeting, I would assume that it would be reasonable, discernible, but at the same time, I'm certainly not an accountant. I can't even do my own taxes, so.
Now to remember what you're saying, in that they approve the proposed budget, ultimately the Borough of Belmar approves the budget. It is in there, because I do remember that.
Okay, and how?
That's correct as well.
My question is also then in reverse, in terms of expenditures. I would assume that they would recommend expenditures, but it all would have to be finally approved by the Borough of Belmar.
And within that, there is a capital outlay contribution by each municipality within that budget as well. So we're not.
Just a practical comment on number 11. The steering committee apparently is going to have a number of subcommittees, and it just, again, my own opinion, you know, you have a steering committee of 8 people, and you have 6 subcommittees to be handled by those 8 people. It just seems like a lot of bureaucracy to me. You know, budget subcommittee, personnel subcommittee, a quarters equipment subcommittee, standard operating procedure subcommittee. You know, it just, I mean, I don't know if that's.
It's a working group, and you know,
It seems like the 8 people are all going to be sitting in the room anyway. You know, I mean, I don't know, a subcommittee of 2. But then again, that's more of an operational thing. Maybe that'll change in the future. The other thing I noticed here, when you pick the municipal representatives, it says that the primary, there's 2 representatives, the primary and the alternate, I understand. The primary must be selected from the following positions: Borough Administrator / Borough Manager, Police Chief, Public Safety Director, or Emergency Management Coordinator. The question I have is, why is it so limited? I mean, why can't the CFO be on the committee, or someone else within the town be on that committee?
to answer that would be to have public safety experience, to understand the operations, what is needed. With all due respect, the CFO would not be someone I would go to ask an
Well, the
operational question.
borough administrator might not know what needs
That
to
is
be done
correct.
either.
They do oversee an Office of Emergency Management. You know, they do have a role within the incident command system.
I just, you know, I went back and I looked at the functions of the steering committee, and I don't see anything in the functions that really requires any special knowledge of the EMS function itself. I mean, a lot of it is just hiring, oversight, review and approvals, recommending changes. I just thought, you know, it's kind of very limiting when you limit the individuals from a municipality that can be on the steering committee to those 4
And it was to have a public
individuals,
safety
you know.
background, and that was proposed by one of the other municipalities.
Because the other thing too is lots of times people come to the position with other experience. You know, you might have a CFO that had, you know, EMS experience. So, you know, it's just a suggestion. I don't think there's a really need to have it so limited. In that same paragraph, it says, shall be appointed by the mayor annually at the first reorganization meeting of the governing body in January of each year. So is that implying that the council is going to approve that position?
Yes, for whoever the appointment is for the specific municipality.
Okay, because it doesn't really say that, it just says it's going to be appointed at that meeting.
Well, who would make the appointment?
Plus at the end, it says mutual aid agreements will be reviewed and approved by the steering committee. My question there is, will those mutual aid agreements be approved by the council? Because right now, our mutual aid agreements are approved by council. So if the steering committee is reviewing and approving them, what opportunity do the municipal councils have then to weigh in on whether or not they want to approve that?
So the mutual aid agreements that have been approved by the council all regard a financial benefit. So that is, our residents are not billed. An operational like a volunteer agency, if we were to do a mutual aid agreement with them, that would be an operational section that wouldn't be approved by the council. It's a mutual aid system that the county has, so our agreements are billing agreements with with Hackensack, with Rubber, with Johnson, with Neptune, and with Wall Township. So those are more billing agreements.
Correct me, but any change in that document would have to be approved by each one of the.
Yes.
Each town.
Mhm.
Yeah, any change in that
Yeah.
document.
All the steering committee does is get it together to present it to the mayor and council. So they will approve everything. The steering, you have a group of people that are gonna make sure things are, T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. So that's why you have people working on this with all layers of discipline in municipal government and emergency services.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to make sure there's no ambiguity, because it does say reviewed and approved by the steering committee. You know, I guess we
You
could
would
be
know that it would
overkill.
then go to the mayor and council,
Right, it could
correct?
be overkill and say, oh, then it goes to the municipal councils for
Right.
approval. You know, it doesn't say that though.
Right.
As far as looking at the things that we're going to do, it seems from paragraph C that the borough of Belmar is going to provide all the equipment, the ambulances, the quarters, all that kind of stuff for this agreement. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to be billing, do all the third-party billing from what I read here. And the one question I had was, it says there's a fee schedule. There will be a fee schedule adopted by the South Monmouth EMS Steering Committee. Has that been adopted yet, or is there anything?
No, well, there isn't a committee yet, but there has been one by the borough of Belmar. Ultimately, any fees that are going to be charged from this agency will be approved by borough and council like they are now.
Okay. Speaking of that, also in paragraph 6 it says, this revenue shall solely be utilized to offset the annual operating budget of Belmar Emergency Medical Services. What does that mean?
So the money taken in for revenue is going to offset the operational budget costs.
Of this,
Yes.
of this project?
Correct.
Okay, so it won't be used, for example, if Belmar needs to put money in its line item for the first aid. It's going to be designated to be used only for this. Okay. Which leads me also then to the question about the grant. This $250,000 grant, is that something that's going to be controlled solely by the steering committee
It's going to be awarded to the borough of Belmar and
to be used for
startup costs.
this?
Yes.
Can it be used for anything else?
No, it's used for the startup costs.
Okay, does the grant say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a local efficiency grant.
Would it be possible to get a copy of that grant when it gets approved ultimately?
When it gets
Yeah.
approved, I can't see why not unless there's something on it that I'll have to redact.
Okay. The other thing that we're providing to this project is CFO for budget preparation, review and billing, qualified purchasing agent for purchasing services, which leads me to another question, that who's going to decide who's going to approve the purchases of this committee? Is it going to be the committee? Like if the committee says, well, we need, 5 more chairs, is that a done deal, or is that something that's going to go to the purchasing agent who's going to say, well, maybe we should have
follow
4?
the same procedures they do now with, as any department head, we have purchasing guidelines, and they're going to follow all the guidelines if they need to. Capital items, I would assume, are going to be looked at by the steering committee, and it's going to be forwarded to the borough of Belmar, and we're going to have to follow all purchasing guidelines that we currently do follow.
Okay. And the other municipalities, how will they weigh in on this? Is this going to be?
They have
Capital
their
items will be on the steering committee.
Yeah, that's how that's the
But
representation.
daily operating Band-Aids, gauze pads, stuff like that, that's going to be done as it normally is right now, and within the guidelines that we have.
And again, this brings you back to the budget. Those types of items will be charged as appropriations to specific
Yeah,
lines,
as they
so
are,
that we
as they
can,
are right now.
we can identify that they're going to this project.
There's the EMS has sub-accounts, and they'll be charged respectively where they need to be.
This goes back to my question also about hiring people. This is, as established herein, Belmar shall hire with oversight from the steering committee EMS coordinated and emergency medical technicians. Again, my comment is just, if we're doing the hiring, then I think we don't necessarily need oversight to do that.
Well, most you have to look at, there's other municipalities and other taxpayers' dollars that are going to be partially funding this program. So it's not so much oversight, it's more or less input where the steering committee will have the opportunity to weigh in. The steering committee would have the opportunity to vote on, yes, we need additional EMS personnel. And then the option would be presented to the borough and council as it normally is for hiring either part-time or full-time employees.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of difference of opinion. I would not go that route myself. If I'm hiring somebody, I want to be able to hire them. You know, I certainly will take the advice of the other municipalities, but ultimately, if I'm paying them, the decision is going to be mine.
But I think that decision
That's how it's worded.
is the borough's.
Yeah.
And they were clear on that.
Yeah. Okay, we did that. It's not a separate budget. Oh, here, there is a possibility, because it says on page 6, under 8, each member municipality will be responsible to allocate funding in the event of an unanticipated budget shortfall in accordance with the cost share for each municipality to pay by December 31st. I guess my last question, my bottom line question is, has anybody analyzed what this is going to cost the borough and whether or not we're going to be, I hate to use the term making money, but is this going to be a break-even type thing, or is the borough going to profit from it, or is the borough going to be in a deficit and have to put money into it?
So what that does is that protects the borough of Belmar from having to bear responsibility for any deficits that we come through. Of course, we go into this trying to provide the best service. Medical billing is very hard to estimate and try to predict due to changes in Medicare, Medicaid, insurance carriers, motor vehicle accidents, all different factors go into that. You know, we are, you know, for budget purposes, we had to anticipate a lower side revenue. You know, we would hope to be somewhere near breaking even, but the fact that there's so many intangible things that could change at any time that change that whole outcome, so.
But and just to get clear in my mind, though, the services that we're providing, you know, the human services, the CFO, the human resource person, the purchasing person, and all that, if we break even, then we're basically absorbing the cost of those, utilization of those
built into the budget,
individuals.
there is numbers for them that the other municipalities are paying, so that was built into the operating budget, because we did not feel it was fair that all our professionals are being used, and there's no offset.
I didn't see that in the agreement, that the other municipalities are going to pay.
Well, that's part of the operating budget.
Yeah, it's paragraph 4 under subsection.
But if the operating budget is in a deficit, that means that somebody's not getting paid. Right? I mean,
I'm not following.
your revenue stream in this organization is only going to be your fees that you're collecting from people who use the service or grants. How else are you going to get revenue into this budget?
Well, it would come from the taxpayers if the revenue doesn't meet what the expenses are. That's why we have all the towns involved. So
That's my
we share
concern.
that cost.
It's divided
Because the
among
taxpayers are going to be
municipalities.
paying for this, plus we're going to be paying for our own EMS service. But my question is, we're paying in.
I'm sorry, hold on.
No.
That's a confusion. I apologize also. This is your EMS service. There's
So we will not have a line in the budget for EMS service outside of this?
You'll have the regular EMS operating budget.
That's
like
what I'm
it is
talking
now.
about.
Yeah,
That's what I'm talking, that's still going to be there.
yeah, that's still there. There's no contributions to any other organization.
Right.
But if, let's say, $10,000 this agency short, it's going to be divided upon 35, 15, and the other municipalities are going to have to pay their share. So it's
I guess my question is, if we don't make any money in this project, are the other municipalities still paying for the use of our personnel?
Yes,
How?
pursuant to the operating agreement. Mass One has to contribute 35%, Seaward has to contribute 15%, and Lake Como has to contribute 15%. Without this agreement, the borough of Belmar residents would be contributing 100% of the total operating cost, so this cuts off essentially 2/3-ish.
But that money has to be used for other things. That money has to be used for
There'll be a
supplies and.
There's a reassessment done at that point. If there is extra fees needed or more work contributed by those employees, then yeah, there would be a reassessment that would have to be discussed and reevaluated to augment the agreement, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, I'm just concerned that we're going to be utilizing our employees, and if we're not collecting enough revenue, then the taxpayers of Belmar are going to be, in a way, subsidizing this program for the other three towns. That's my only concern. So, you know,
It built into it for what our professionals estimated. There was a number in this operating budget to come up with all the numbers for this budget that reflects what they felt their work level would be.
so what are we going to get paid for? I mean, how are we determining the pay for the CFO and the job that she does for this organization?
Well, when we created the budget, we consulted them, and they gave us, I don't have the number off the top of my head right now, but they gave us a number saying this is what we feel is a fair amount.
Right, so there is a number that,
Yeah.
that is going to be paid to Belmar for the services of those individuals. Is it possible to get a copy of that budget and those numbers? Because,
Once it's fully adopted, yes, then the budget would be made available. But while the budget's still being fully ironed out, no. Because like any budget, you can't get a budget in draft form until it's fully executed.
yeah, I know that. We're
Yeah,
we're
no,
at May 11th.
I'm just
May
speaking out loud.
17th. Yeah. So assuming that this gets passed by all the municipalities, when do you think we'll have the budget? It says,
It's
what?
going to be, the municipal budget is, yeah.
Saturday gets introduced.
Okay, I mean, I'm just curious, I would like to, I think everyone, you know, deserves to see what we're getting reimbursed from those other towns for the utilization of our employees, you know, because they actually are taking time then from what they should be doing here to do there. So,
Not
you know,
necessarily because they're already acting as it now, as it stands. I mean, they're.
well, I mean, it's implied that they're doing extra work, or else the other towns wouldn't be paying us for it. I mean, let's face it, if they weren't doing extra, they would say, well, they just absorb it. But, yeah, I'd be curious to know those numbers, and maybe I'll ask for it at a future meeting. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Dilbar.
Tom Delvero, 1000 River Road. Is this the public section or just for the minute?
No, this is just for resolution items. Public session's coming up.
Okay. Sir, thank you very much. That was very well done. One thing I'd like to bring up, because my mind is sort of logical, and I can't get beyond the logic. We're in this with Lake Como, okay, and Manasquan and Seagull, correct? Now, geographically, there's two towns that are left out of this place. Spring Lake and Spring Lake Heights. How can this operate? Will our ambulance bypass a person who is sick, ill, hurt in the road, or whatever, going on their way to Manasquan and leave that person? Or how does this work in that they're not in it?
So they were involved in the planning process. They did not feel they needed it. If an ambulance passes a sick or injured person by law, they have to stop. Mutual aid plans have not been approved or reviewed yet for those jurisdictions, but they were involved in the process. They felt that they were adequately served right now by their volunteer first aid, and they did not need to join into this. So it was their choice that they decided to get out of this, the planning stages of this program.
Well, it seems to be unworkable in that they're not
Mr.
in it.
Dilberger, 1 second. Why don't you explain to Mr. Dilberger that if we are called to Spring Lake or Spring Lake Heights, we charge them full price. They don't get the break of being in this program. So we will get calls for Spring Lake and Spring Lake Heights when they cannot get an ambulance out. It's happened already. But they get charged full price. We don't give them any breaks. So with Manasquan and Seagull, whatever the insurance companies will pay, that's all they have to pay. With anybody that's not in this program, will be paying full price. So until they join the program, so it's not that we're passing through them, but if they can't get their volunteers out to do the work and they have to call us, they get paid. They have to be charged full price.
and their agencies have to adopt a mutual aid plan to call us. We can't just jump into their town and take calls that are in their town.
That's all being worked on, Mr. Goldberger. All the mutual aid plans are being worked on now. And Spring Lake Heights, like Ryan said, were involved. They chose that to not be involved at this time because they have a volunteer squad that I think is adequate.
What percentage of the people working in the, let's just keep it to Belmar, will be volunteers?
Well, we're looking to expand our forces now. Right now, we have about 10 people on a waiting list that we're looking to try to revamp a volunteer program. We're trying to entice kids. I mean, we talked in our planning committee about approaching the high school. They have a public safety academy. Let's try to get an EMT program ran out of there, try to get some sort of regional collaborative effect to try to get the volunteers involved and try to get more people volunteering.
Well, what percentage right now are volunteers?
Of our program, 0.
Huh?
We have 10 people who are interested. Some do not have training. Some have training.
All right, that doesn't answer my question, because I asked you, what percentage of the people that are
I just told
working?
you 0.
Say again?
0.
Say again?
0.
0% are volunteers.
This is a paid service, just like it was prior to 2019. 2018, they started a paid service in Belmar.
Okay, how many people are working with you?
Right now, we hold about 15 to 20 employees.
15 and, between 15 and 20.
Correct.
Some are part-timers.
They're all part-time right now. We're looking to transition to a full-time model.
All right, thank you. About the $250,000 grant, when can we expect to get that?
We're expected here within the next 2 to 3 weeks with that, as I talked to them yesterday.
Now, do you expect other grants in the future?
Yes, we're constantly looking to apply for different grants. We're talking to our county representatives now to try to get additional funding, and we're trying different avenues to try to get that. But once we get this in service, if another jurisdiction would like to join, that opens us up for more municipal funding through the state. So
You're looking to use the $250,000 in your budget, right?
it has to be used for startup costs. As we're adding to our program, we need to get different supplies, new ambulances, and make different upgrades. That that $250,000 is going to offset.
And that grant can only be used for these services.
Correct. It's for the startup, for the shared service agreement for EMS.
And you understand Belmar's history and money that's only supposed to be used for a certain project?
I would not.
Do you understand our history with that, right? You understand that?
I'm just going to instruct you not to answer that question.
What?
Hello? I said I'm going to instruct you to not answer that question.
The defendant can't answer the question?
No, sir, I'm going to sustain this objection.
Holy moly. Well, what kind of profit do you think you'll make?
Sir, the profit, it's very difficult to estimate medical billing. I am a very positive person, and I always hope we're going to have a profit, but I can't determine that.
All right, I'll stop now. Thank you. This is something else. Oh, boy. Here we go.
I'm glad you came back.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Here we go.
A motion to close the public session?
Motion.
Maria Rondinaro, 1246 Pine Tree Way. I just had 2 questions. One, we would be hiring 8 full-time EMS workers, EMTs, and then 1 full-time supervisor, is that correct?
Sorry.
That's okay. So 8 full-time EMTs and 1 full-time supervisor?
Correct.
Will be hired. Do we know about what that will cost?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's all been built into this elaborate budget.
Okay. And that we'll get to see on Saturday
It's
at
going to be
10 a.m.?
incorporated in the municipal budget, but yeah.
Okay.
It should be, I believe it should be in the budget. Yes. I
It will be, right?
I had to look for confirmation because
Okay.
I prepared the actual budget.
Right, I mean, this will be the first reading, so many of us won't be here on Saturday morning because it's, Saturday morning, we weren't expecting necessarily to be here for a public session afterwards or listening to the full introduction. So I'm just wanting to know that when I look at that video again, that I'll be able to actually see that it's a line item for our budget.
Yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't be.
Okay.
We have to wait for the CFO, I'm sorry.
Okay, great. And then I am just wondering, is on Resolution 2022-89, the American Federation of Musicians. I love that there's a union for musicians, that's wonderful. Can you tell me a little bit about that agreement? Because it's $12,700 for the musicians for the summer. I'm just wondering where that fits in with the budget. I was a little confused about what extraordinary unspecified services.
That comes under tourism. That'll be, that comes out of tourism. They play on Monday and Tuesday nights through the summer.
Okay, so that's not coming out of our budget, that is coming out of the tourism fees?
Yes.
Okay.
They included in their budget that was presented on Wednesday at the meeting last week. And one other thing I wanted to let you know is, this program that brings the musicians and then it makes the agreement with the union, it dates all the way back to the WPA in the 1930s. So we've been doing it here that long. So this is just a continuation of the same thing we've been doing.
Great, and what's the $6,000 that you get back afterwards? What is that in reference to?
The union reimburses us that.
Yes.
Okay,
We
That's part of
pay
the
them and then the union reimburses us the $6,000.
okay, great. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing about the budget. I am still very disappointed we had to go from a volunteer and per diem model to hosting a multi-borough operated EMS. Thank you.
Joe McAvoy, 700 Main Street. I just got a quick question for you, Ryan, just to piggyback on what Jerry said and Mr. Dilberg line of questioning. There's a percentage that, you said there's a percentage that they agreed upon originally. Is that set in stone, or if one town only uses,
Are you talking about the contribution percentage?
contribution
The
percentage?
contribution percentage is that's what each town is paying. There is no
Right.
this or that, it's that, and what we did is we established that, I believe it's 2024 is the year that it's going to be done off call volume, but there's a minimum call percent. So that 15% is as low as the boroughs can go. No matter how much you use it or you don't, you're paying for the service, you're not paying for the use.
So one town's way out of whack with what was predicted? There's no way to modify it next year?
No, just because right now, we went off of our anticipated call volumes, population, parcels, to get to our numbers, and believe it or not, we're very similar to Manasquan. That's how we got those numbers, and Cedar and Lake Como as well,
So you should
very
get
similar.
close to it.
So, that was the most fair equation, other than splitting it in fours, that we could come up with.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else?
Okay, thank you.
Can I have a motion to close the public session?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve the resolutions as listed on the consent agenda? Motion?
Second.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinney?
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman McCracken?
Yes.
Next, we have first reading and introduction in ordinance 2022-10. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 19, Section 46 for handicapped parking spaces. We have a motion to offer for first reading. Motion?
Second.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilwoman McKinney?
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman McCracken?
Yes.
Okay, now on the public session.
You going, Maria? Go ahead.
Maria?
You sit down. You sit
I
down.
don't know.
Hi, Maria.
Not being a senior yet. I want to know what's in the future for the seniors. Their luncheons, their daily activities like we used to do at the church?
I think we have a lot of activities that are going on.
Don't think, I want to know.
We have them in town pavilion, we have them in the courtroom. Everything that you had at the church,
Did
the
it
yoga,
start?
chair yoga, mahjong, card games, those are still being conducted at town pavilion, and Voluntary pavilion was being,
Because I don't see anything in here.
just go to the website, you'll see everything that we have.
I
You don't go to the
know
website, okay. Well, I'll get you a list.
You know, that, I missed a Cinco de Mayo because, you know,
35 sign.
What's that?
And the 35 sign is what?
She doesn't go by the 35 sign.
are you kidding?
Come on,
You think I drive?
I'll get you a list.
I'm looking, but are there any, volunteers that will take you like we used to have? If you had to go to the doctor, you could call. I have no idea if any of that is out there.
I can't give you an answer because I'm not sure. They'll find out from our recreation or director or Mayor Gravazon if we still have that program.
Just don't forget the seniors.
All right. Well, we have a senior luncheon coming up, but it's in September at the Fishing Club. We set that up, so I know that that's coming. But,
We look forward for that monthly delightful luncheon. It was great, and we all
yeah,
got together.
but we're going to get back to it. I mean,
Okay.
the pandemic messed everything up, so.
I know. Let's forget that now.
All right, we'll
All right.
forget that.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Dilberger.
Tom Dilberger, 1000 River Road. Has this thing with the skate park been decided one way or another yet?
No, it has not.
I'd like to talk on that a little. From what I read in the paper last week in the Co-Star, they were talking about, a lot of talk about injury. Well, obviously, if the boys are out there doing it, they'll be hurt. That goes with it. Actually, being hurt goes with anything you try. And when you get right down to it, you can be hurt sitting here just sitting. It doesn't matter. You can all be hurt right now. And I can be hurt sitting here. Hey, that's happens. That's life and everything. To be all upset about the insurance, of course they're going to yell and scream and carry on that they're going to be hurt. That's their job because they don't want to pay anybody for being hurt. They just want to collect their money and give you as little back as possible. That's their game. We all understand the insurance game. But the injury thing, you shouldn't. I was originally against this. And when Claire Dykey was on the board, on the council, she was against it. We were against it for two different reasons. Claire, because of injury, and myself, because I understood as I listened to the people that were trying to get it set up, that they were not going to take care of it. Never happened GI, as we used to say. They would never go into that enclosure and pick up the papers and trash that their sons and daughters, well, not so much daughters, their sons left and the bottles and all that stuff. They would never do that ever. That's why I was against it. Because I understood it, I was correct. The town ended up taking us, putting a guy out there and policing it up. That's the way things are. As we said, nobody volunteers. You can point a gun at them, they won't volunteer. They want to get money for whatever they want. No volunteer, that's out. But as over the time that it was used, I turned around and I said, well, policing up isn't as important as these boys being out here. Because it was well used. It's one of the only things in town that was well used. Yes, they still skate on the streets and everywhere you see them. But they were well using that skate park. So I changed. I said, well, they're doing it. They're not in their house playing those computer games. Being outside is better than being inside as far as a boy is concerned anyway. As far as anybody's concerned, that's my way of thinking. This stuff of living indoors, basically for your whole life, I can't even understand. But That's the way it is a lot of times. But these boys were out. And yes, we will be sued. Because anybody, I'll say, I'll give an age, probably anybody from 55 down has their lawyer on speed phone to call up and make a suit. They don't, I don't care from a paper cut all the way up to the worst injury known to mankind. And everything in between. We know that. But it's no reason to shut this thing down. For once, we should do something that's actually good for the boys. They're out there, actually outside, doing something. If you walk around this town, not only this town, I'm a walker. I've been my whole life. Walk around all these towns. The streets are deserted all the time. The only time you see a person is they're getting out of their car, going into their house, or coming from the house, getting into the car and driving somewhere. Seldom do you see anybody else. Of course, they walk their dog. But usually it's deserted. I can walk, and I have walked, from here to Manasquan, and never seen another person afoot. I'm not joking about that. These boys were outside. Please, whatever you do, don't get rid of this skate park. It's a good thing. One of the good things we do. Please retain it, take those Jersey barriers out, start it up again. The boys will be all right. Sure, they'll get hurt a bit, but they'll be fine. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Donna?
Rosello, 14th Avenue. I'm just going to comment on the skate park thing. You ever come down my street? If you come down my street, there is a load of kids playing on our block. They're outside. They're not indoors. And the skate park, it's got to be done. It's got to be done safely. That's as far as that's my opinion of it. It just has to be done safely. First, Mayor, I want to thank you for assisting us on the Belmar Cares Breast Cancer Support Group concert and for helping us present the band with the banner, which was a thank you to them because they do it for us for free, and we wanted to give them something that they would appreciate. And it's a really, really nice banner, and it was a great article in the Co-Star about it. So I just wanted to tell you thank you very much for that. And we did very well. We did very well. So, but thank you. And we had no problems with parking issues. You took care of everything. So thank you very much for that.
My pleasure.
Eddie, the treetops that are the wires by my house, okay, they cut them, but all they did was cut the points off. So I'm quite sure next year they'll probably have to do it again. Potholes that I mentioned to you in the past, every one of them that I mentioned to you, every single one of them have been taken care of. And you also explained...
Good job, Bill.
Yes, every one of them, every single pothole that I mentioned, every single one of those have been taken care of. I mean, you can't help it with the downpours and the rain and things like that happen from nature, but every single one of those have been taken care of. And I do understand that the parking lines, I have seen that they're starting to get painted, and so it just takes time. And certain streets in the town are getting repaved, slowly but surely, but we're getting it done. It's all coming together. The community policing, we had a meeting last night. There was only a few of the block captains on my team. If there's any way we can put something on the website for volunteers for Lake Como and Belmar, all zones. Just put something on there, just that, we're looking for more volunteers and stuff. And we went over some issues, and thank you for showing up for that also. And that's about all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Hi, how are you doing? It was very nice seeing you on Friday. I'm glad you I'm John Walsh, 11th and B. It was very nice seeing you on Friday. I'm glad you postponed Saturday's event. And Ed, it was very nice seeing you as well Friday night evening. I just have two questions. The beach lockers, a couple of my neighbors are asking, when are those moving to the avenues?
It should be shortly. I mean, everything was tied up because of the weather and the rain and everything like that. But I think a lot of them were being put out today, weren't they, Bill?
The
sand was being prepped for the platforms that the lockers sit on top of, so within the next couple of days, the lockers are gonna start going out.
Awesome. And a question about the EMS, I didn't want to get up when everyone was here. This is the first time I'm really understanding that we're bumping out our system to help other towns. So if there's a call at the Osprey in Manasquan, or at someone's house in Manasquan, do they leave out of here in Belmar to go to them?
Yes, so we have
So they'll
we have plans for multiple ambulances to be on the road.
Okay.
Ambulances are going to be stationed out of Belmar. If in the future there is a substation that is created, they will have access to that for showers, bathrooms, to do reports, whatnot. But the main operation is going to be out of Belmar.
Because I've been in the Manasquan EMS building. Will that stop operation there?
No, so that they are going to augment this system. So if there's no flood, all ambulances are at the hospital or whatnot, they are going to be utilized. They're also going to be utilized for their standbys and fire calls, whatever they normally do, they're going to. But the primary EMS call, the first ambulance is going to be to this ambulance.
To this, okay. All right, thank you.
But, I'm sorry, and vice versa, so if our ambulances are not available, Manasquan will come up here,
Yeah, we're in negotiations with them for the volunteer service. We actually have a meeting tomorrow where we should have some more information on that. But that is currently how the system works. Is they come to us, we come to them. Same with right now.
Is there a system in Monmouth County that exists? Because it sounds like we're building like New York City.
No, unfortunately,
right?
in an ideal situation, Monmouth County would have an EMS system, but they do not have one.
Are we jumping the gun on that, or?
We are already involved with Wall Township and Neptune.
Yeah.
So we already have interlocal agreements with them, so if we need ambulances and ours is tied up, we still have Wall Township and Neptune, and we can go over there. So we're all trying to work together. Everybody's having the same issues as we've had with the volunteers, and it's starting to move to that type of program. So
can this eventually be taken over by the county?
Well, they tried it years ago, but they couldn't make it work. So we're starting a small scale of what they wanted to do, take it all over from the county.
We are talking to Monmouth County. This is a statewide issue, not just a Monmouth County issue.
Yeah.
So we are talking to Monmouth County commissioners. We're going to meet with them again, but every town's got a problem.
Yep. Well,
But
good
it
luck.
does sound like we are going to be a model, hopefully,
Yeah.
in the
That's
future.
big undertaking.
As I said, the DCA Local Government Services has been heavily involved, and they've been taking a lot of notes. I don't want to say from our committee, but they've been involved, they've been reviewing what we've been doing, and they've been trying to spread this also throughout other counties and other areas, experiencing the same thing. Gloucester County has a countywide EMS system. We reviewed that. Union County has an EMS system. So there is counties out there that have it. Ours currently does not. In the future, we would hope,
Think of it as we're showing them how it can be done.
Yeah, big undertaking. So good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Joe? Oh.
Joe McAvoy, 700 Main Street. I just got 5 minutes for you, Mayor, that's all. I'm just gonna take up 5 minutes of your time tonight. I know it's been a long night for everybody already. Mr. Russo, I'm gonna start with you tonight. I usually finish with you. Mr. Varga, I'm sorry. I apologize. Mr. Varga, I'm gonna start with you tonight. I usually finish with you, but since you neglected to do your due diligence, as I asked a month ago, on behalf of a handful of veterans and firefighters in town, and you obviously never looked into the U.S. flag code, as they begged for over a year, and I asked since November 9 last year on our behalf. First of all, your definition of inclement weather wasn't by any means the legal definition, which is the very definition defined in the U.S. flag code. 2 Saturdays ago, as well as last night, were the only 2 inclement weather days in the past 2 months, as per the code. The flag, however, flew both days, as a few veterans, as well as a couple concerned civilians in town, who truly support the troops in their actions and not simply their words, donated money and purchased a storm flag that's flown unceasingly since. They do appreciate you being the one individual to outwardly thank them for that donation, while our business administrator exclaimed, "We have a few of those on order." Well, ours was ordered and arrived beforehand. We're glad it's up there. Also, when I asked if you were required to fly the POW-MIA flag as well, 3 people, including our trusty business administrator, once again said, "We have one and we'll put it up," not knowing that you're not even required to fly it because you're not a federal installation. Proving again that after 4 visits since November 9th, that no one cares about what's in the U.S. flag code. This administration that once again our mayor claimed in a speech on 9/11 last year stands for freedom and bringing patriotism back to Belmar couldn't care less. It isn't all about the flag, however. That's just an example. It's about an administration that doesn't listen to simple requests from its citizens, some of whom are duty experts, yet wants pie-in-the-sky developments, proposed construction, infrastructure projects against the will of the majority of residents, and can't even handle the simple, traditional tasks of government. I thank George and Charlie for their help and concern to finally remedy the situation with the flag. We all appreciate the lights on the memorials, and once again, we thank George for getting a U.S. Post Office to finally illuminate their U.S. flag and fly the POW-MIA flag as well, which they're required to do. The most motivating piece of correspondence I received this past bi-weekly interim from the many weekly messages I get from Belmartians, local business owners, and even concerned borough employees, as an administrator of the Belmar Lake Como West Belmar Residents Facebook group, was a message from a woman who said, quote, "I'm glad you called out the mayor for trying to shush you up. My family and I were foreign exiles, and that kind of stuff makes my skin crawl. My father was a political prisoner. I'm petrified by the rise of autocracy worldwide these days. Sometimes it's hard to call it out in small communities because they know exactly who you are, where you live, and can make your life miserable." She said, "Amen to your statement. We have to be vigilant in protecting democracy right now." She went on to say, it's not only that the law enforcement flag is a violation of the flag code. In many homes, it now supplants the American flag, which signals to me a deterioration of patriotism in favor of cultism. Take a sip of water here. I'm guessing she knows the difference between freedom and liberty, arrogance versus audacity, the force of autocratic rule versus the power of a constitutional republic, and a soliloquy versus a diatribe as well, Mr. Bartlett. I'll be here most of the summer and I'm just getting started. You're warned, you didn't listen, you proceeded to take food off my table. Now I'm going to take food off yours. 3 weeks from now, we'll talk about an internal affairs investigation that Mr. Kirschenbaum was named in, launched last year. I'll have a follow-up question from last month for the mayor about the goings-on with the zoning board. Mr. Brennan, you and me, we're going to talk common sense about the Think Globally, Act Locally environmental issues going on in town and initiatives that you brought up. And Dr. Kinney, we'll talk about censorship, the violation of election law by you and others here. Just so you have time to prepare. I wouldn't want to shock you with any sudden news like I did 2 weeks ago. Have a great 3 weeks. Appreciate your time.
I just want to say one thing. George Comatas has been putting the flags up and down in this town, a great employee that he is, for the past 3 administrations. He does a great job. I appreciate everything he does for us. He puts those flags up and down. He has a system of doing it. He's out there every single day. I don't think George ever took credit. Not one of us up here with flags up and down. And George, we rely on you every day, and I think you do a great job.
George, come on, George.
George Comitas, London, third Avenue, got a little flustered. First of all, one of my biggest regrets, not that you need to know, is that I never joined the military. Like Joe's a Marine, and I respect anybody that served. To me, they're just, that's why I care about the flags. Going back to what I want to talk about, I'm not the best historian on the Belmar Fire Company, but when I joined in 1975, I think we had 2 weeks of training. My son just got done 2 years ago when he was 18. It was like 4 months. Right now, fire companies are at the fire academy. They work every weekend. Our fire company has a standby for free for volunteer. They care. We got great guys, and I don't need to toot your horn. We're lucky to have Ryan. The guy is very knowledgeable. Besides being a career fireman, he's a normal human being, in my opinion. The first day when I joined, I think 2000, because I had the restaurant, you can't do first aid if you have your own business. At the end, when I left, I think there were 5 volunteers left that were hardcore, and we were answering 12 to 1,400 calls a year. I mean, like crazy. We did have paid crews on the weekends from, like, for $10 an hour. Most people would get. I mean, I still answer calls. It's just tough. Right now, I'm just finishing my CEUs, and my brain's gotten fried. I'm just getting done now because of COVID. I just need 3 more. It's my last time probably being an EMT for the next 4 years. These EMTs, these kids you have now, I should call them kids, young men, they're going to be nurses. They're smart. They're intelligent. And they really care. And we've answered calls. Even all the years I was on, we went to Wall. We went to Spring Lake. We went to Spring Lake Heights. Things have changed. It's hard to get volunteers. The hours now, it's like 4 months to be an EMT. I mean, it's just tough. It's not that easy. Because kids got college. Like my daughter wanted to get her EMT, but she's getting ready for college. My son's going to go for his EMT because he wants to be a career fireman. It's gotten so tough. But Rob, tooting his horn, EMT, he's normal too. He talks nice to people. He's got everything organized. He's just, we're very lucky. It's tough right now for volunteers and for all these first aid calls. It's nonstop. Us baby boomers are wiping everything up. It's just a lot of us. Thank you.
Thanks, George. And I failed to mention at my report that George is becoming the Citizen of the Year for the VFW.
One more time.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Dilbert.
1000 River Road, Tom Dilbert, 1000 River Road. About this volunteerism and everything. Well, okay, you don't have enough volunteers. We know that, that's well established and everything. But, in my experience, bouncing around this country back in the 70s, I worked upstate Minnesota, close to the Canadian border. We came out from work one day, and there was a bunch of tables set up with people sitting behind the tables and everything. We had a sign up where we lived and everything. And they designated us what group we were in. And we were supposed to listen on the radio if our group was called and we report to a certain area. We had to do this or be locked up because the state trooper was standing behind every table to lock us up. It was mandatory that we volunteered. Maybe, and nobody spoke about, this was for fire duty because up there, if the forest starts on fire, it comes right up to your back door. Wherever you live, it comes right back to your back door because the forest is everywhere around you. So you had to volunteer. There were no questions about it. Well, I'm a bit of a historian, history buff. In World War II, everything, the last war we won actually, there were 11 million men under arms. Only 1 million were volunteers. A lot of people don't know that. Only 1 million out of the 11. I think, I'm not too spicy, that's not a tenth. That's not 1/10. So maybe some sort of action could be put into play that way to attract, quote, volunteers, unquote. Have you ever thought of something like that? Mandatory volunteerism. Now, for instance, they call in the schools, such as, if you really want to use that word, school, for what these stupid things are, they mandate community service and everything. And they call it volunteering. Of course they're not volunteering, they wouldn't volunteer. So they mandate it. They do it in the school, and that's all right. So why isn't it all right to mandate volunteers of the population? We did it in World War II. We did it actually all the way up to Vietnam, right? And then they dropped the draft. Why not some sort of idea of that? For instance, if somebody's house is on fire and you live on a block and you're healthy, why shouldn't you be guided? Sure, you need somebody to show them how to lay out the hose and everything and fight the fire a bit. And yes, of course, they would be hurt. Obviously, they would be injured, but they might actually be able to put the fire out. Just like nobody cared about us, we would just have to take care of that forest fire if our group was called. You heard it on the radio in the morning. My group was never called, but a couple of guys in my gang at work, they got called. Spent a couple of days up there. All they actually had to know, it came down to, is how to use a shovel. Everybody had that idea, how to use a shovel. They'd dig trenches, trench lines, break fires, and everything, backfires, and things like that. It worked. Think it through. There's an answer here. You're the council. Do something about it.
Okay, anyone else? All right, April, seeing none?
Can I have a motion to close the public session and adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
It's